Hey everyone, Angus here. I just thought I'd make a video on just a slightly different way on how I use Bollinger Bands to find stocks that are breaking out. I personally tend to trade longer term, where I like to find stocks that are trending and having a fairly good long term run. But I also like the whole try and find rockets and see if I can make a quick 10 to 20% off them before they come crashing back to earth. And so that's quite tricky. There's different ways of doing it, but one of the reasons why I like Bollinger Bands is that, the whole idea of Bollinger Band is that, the middle line here is, effectively a 20-day moving average. And so you can then see if a stock's trending up, based on whether that average is moving up. And then the upper and lower lines are basically two standard deviations away from that middle line. So, the theory is that, originally they sort of said that 95% of all trades, would take place within the two lines. It's probably more like 92, 93% from, what people have tested. But the whole idea is to try and find stocks where they might have been compressing. So they would have, had a sort of fairly wide volatility. This is not a good example, but you can see that the volatility's, almost gone to nothing. And then all of a sudden the stocks have exploded up. And so, this one here has gone up, 829%. It's just sort of rocketed up, not for any particularly good reason, but it's, doing quite well. There might have been some news around here, some sort of a deal, or maybe just the masses moved into it. I've made a video previously where I just sort of talk about, if you look at the relative volume and you set that to say above 1, and you then set the Bollinger Band up is below the last price, that's a very easy way to find stocks that are breaking out, above their, Bollinger Bands, for no particularly good reason. But I've kind of modified this over time. Like, at the moment, I don't really know why these ones have taken off here. There's nothing on the chart that's obvious. I could basically look up this stock in, Yahoo Finance, and I could then read, why it might have started to take off, and, get a bit of information on, what was happening, and then try and make a gut feel as to whether I should buy it or not. But the standard sort of rule is if a stock closes above that upper Bollinger Band, and if there's, reasonable volume, then it could be well worth a purchase. You can see here that the volume was, when it closed above, the volume was up. It's not a very good chart because it's so broad here. If I sort of zoom in a bit, you can see that it closed above there. That was a fairly good close, but I wouldn't have looked at that and thought, yeah, the volume's high enough. I wouldn't have probably bothered taking that trade probably up until around here, where I can see that the volume is significantly higher. But anyway, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to try and find out a way where I could have a catalyst that I could see. And obviously one of the biggest catalysts is earnings. So depending on how you've got your chart set up, and I probably haven't spoken about this before, but if you click on this little cog up here, which is your settings, I think you can go down to events and see how you can tick this little box here that says show earnings on chart. I don't think these two, I don't really care about those, I'll get rid of them. And show economic events on charts, not relevant for this either, but this whole show earnings on chart is quite interesting, because what I can do, I've discovered that within TradingView, there's this little indicator here, and the way that you add indicators to this bottom bar, again, I've made a previous video on this, is you click those little 3 dots, and so that then allows you to go through and add different columns to this bar here. And so once you've added a column, you want to make sure that you save it. You always want to save it in the drop down here. And you overwrite, the previous one that you've had. And this one here, this saving thing here, basically saves the filters. So this one here saves the columns, and this one here saves your filter settings. And the number of times when I was first starting out that I forgot to save things, I'd spend hours setting something up, and I'd forget to save it, and it was just a disaster the next day. So the columns that I have across here, just for interest, is I've got the ticker, I've got the TradingView technical rating, which I don't really look at as much as I probably should, but all this is a consolidated view of about, I think it's about 30 different indicators to say whether it's likely to be a buy or a sell. This is the last price that it sold for. This is the percentage change of the previous day. This sort of tells you what the weekly performance, monthly performance, 3 monthly performance is, but I actually want to get rid of all those. just to give myself a bit more space. You can add them if you like, but it doesn't really matter. I shouldn't have got rid of the 3-month one, so I'll get rid of the yearly one and I'll add the 3-month one back in. Month, I'll just type in performance. I think performance. Unfortunately, this is down a bit too far, so let's move that up. So if I click on my little dots, I type in performance, and I tick that little box. I'll put my 3-month performance back at the end, and so I'm going to drag him up along there. 3 months performance, and then I've got relative performance, which is basically saying that over the last X number of days, I don't know how many days it is, but I think TradingView used a default figure of something like 10. You can't actually configure it, and I've asked them before, and they don't seem to know if it's 10 days or 20 days. But all it's basically saying, this relative volume indicator, is saying that the average volume going through this stock is higher than it has been, over the previous period of time. It's saying it's roughly 20% higher than what it's been in the past. You've got your average volume. The reason why I use this one is I like to have stocks that have got decent volume going through them, so I'm not too worried about not being able to get out of the trade. Like, I don't trade significant volume. I might put $5,000 worth on a stock that I want to take a punt on. So I'm not having to worry about, how do I get $100,000 out of this penny stock if it doesn't go the right way. I then look at, I don't need EBITDA. I don't care about EBITDA. Some people might, if it's like nice to know if a company's making money or not. The Bollinger Band up, again, you just got to search in this little, 3 dots. But so all this thing here is saying is that the upper band, which is this one here, is below the last price. You can see how the price is above the price is above that band. So you can see at this particular point, which is on the 1-day chart, the price is above that. So that's kind of a good thing. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for stocks that are doing something unusual. Their volume is unusually high, and their price is broken out of that range that they're meant to sort of stay within if they're behaving normally. So I'm looking for stocks that have done something unusual. And the thing that I've added is I've added this recent earnings date. And so if you click on that and you click on the drop down, you can say, show me stocks that have had earnings today, yesterday, this week, previous week. And so all I'm basically saying is I want there to be a catalyst. I want to be able to see a reason why a stock might have gone up. And often what will happen is a stock on earnings, it will possibly have a big spike and then drop back down. The next day it might be a red day, but then the third day after that, if it's green, that's often a good time that I might look to buy it, because it's kind of, everyone gets excited by the news, the stock goes up, the enthusiasm wears off either that day or the next day it comes down a bit. Then everyone else basically says, because it takes a couple of days for people to see the news in the paper or wherever it is. They think, geez, that one went quite well. I might put some money into it, especially retail investors. And so this is just an easy way of finding a catalyst where something unusual has happened to that stock. This one's obviously happened way before that catalyst, which often does happen. There is another indicator that says upcoming earnings. So again, if I type in earnings, and so, upcoming earnings dates, you can say, show me stocks that are, 5 days before earnings or a week before earnings. But I actually want, the news. I want to see what the news is, because stocks can do all sorts of crazy things. You could have a strategy where you buy in the week before the news, and then maybe the day before the news is when you sell. That whole, buy on rumor, sell on fact. But I'd much prefer to, wait for the facts to come out and then work out if a stock's going to continue its upward path or not. So those are the headings that I use here. So the ticker, the rating, which I don't pay much attention to, the last price, because what I might say here is I might say, well, I want to find the really speculative stocks. So I might say, show me stocks where they're between, let's say, $5 and $50. I think that's probably a good range. I can imagine that stocks at that sort of level might be, a bit more volatile, might be likely to jump up. And of course, I can buy a lot more of them. The relative volume, I've just set it at 1.2. You've only got 24 stocks. That's, volume is always a really good indicator of what's going to happen to price. If the volume is starting to go up and the price is going up, then there's a very good chance that, that stock is going to do something interesting. So again, these are the headings that I've got. The RSI, RSI to me kind of, I look at it and I can see that it's, RSI gives me an indication of momentum as well as value. So I like to have stocks that are above 50, and ideally between, say, 50 and 70. If a stock is, up around this, 83 has a RSI type value, you can see here it's above my, the top line here is 80, the bottom line is, I think, 30. That's, super easy to configure. You click the little cog, go style, and so it's actually 80-40. And so it means that, under 40, it's considered oversold, so it could be very good value. And over 80, it typically, most people say if it's over 70, it means it's overbought. But with these particularly hot stocks, I'd expect them to be, 70s and 80s. But I don't really use that RSI for anything other than just trying to get an indication. And I'll only buy the stock if the RSI is pointing up. And if it's sort of gone down and then has ticked up sharply, to me, that's a really good indication that something might be happening with this stock. So you can sort of see here, the stupid arrows go away, but if I make that a bit bigger, see how it was sort of a more prominent move up here. So it just sort of started to move up and it's up here. And I look at that one, then I think, oh, that's something's, interesting starting to happen with that particular stock. So again, I just use the RSI as a little bit of an indicator. So let's scroll out a bit, and you can do this for stocks on whatever exchange you like. So I'm going to save my headings. I'm going to save columns as earnings BB breakout save, and I'm going to save this one as Angus earnings breakout save. Do you want to save it? Yes. Yes. And so there's no asterisk, so those are now saved. And so this one's now telling me, I'll just move this a bit so it's not so spread out. So it gives me a little bit more in the chart. And so all I do is, once I've set these parameters, and I'm happy with all those values, and I haven't got too many stocks that I need to go to, I typically sort by 3-month performance, because what I'm really doing is looking to see how the stock has performed over the last 3 months. So given it's, I guess it's mid-August, I might look from, what's that, April, May, June, July, August, so June, July, August. So I'm probably looking at, this sort of period here. And I'll go through each stock. So I'll start off with parts, which has, been a really good runner. And so, this is one that I do know that I hold. And so what I'm looking at here is I'm thinking the stock's sort of gone sideways here. You can see it's compressed. It's got that really sort of sharp compression here. And then it's steadily gone up. And you can see the bands have been expanding, because it's sort of moving, more and more away from that 20-day line. It's compressed back here as it's gone sideways, consolidated. Then you can see that great big candle there where it's broken above the top Bollinger Band line. There's good volume there. The RSI has gone up. And so I knew that there was something going to happen there. It sort of went up, went a bit sideways. But then what I'm looking at really here is it was going down a bit, because of that, last few days worth of, volatility with the markets went a bit stupid. But then you can see on earnings, it's had a nice big fat green candle. And so, as I said before, it's gone up on earnings. The next day, it's opened up here. It sort of rocketed all the way up to here, and then it's had a pullback back down to there. And then today is another great big green candle. So I would probably shortlist that stock. And so the way I do that is I go and say, create a new list and say BB breakout, say. I'd go save. And then I think I can just right click and I can go add to watch list. And so then it's sitting there. And there's another thing that I want to show you that's really kind of cool, but it won't work right now. If you go and click on this thing here, and I think it's just called pre-market. Yeah, so pre-market percentage change. And so if I put that in and then I slide it across to here, with the US market in particular, the stock market will technically open, I think it's about 4 hours before the main market opens. And I can actually filter on stocks in here to see what they're doing pre-market. So these are probably the values from yesterday. I'm not quite sure, what those values are now because I'm pretty sure the market's not open. But you can see here it doesn't say it's open. It says market's closed, but there'll be a pre-market figure that will appear here. And you can actually see what's going to happen with that stock in the pre-market. And it might say $15.21 USD. And below this, it'll say pre-market $15.25 or $15.35, or it might say $14.50. And so I'll look to see if the stock's going to go up or down in the pre-market. And then if it's up in the pre-market, I can use interactive brokers to buy that stock, so I can get it much earlier than other people who don't have access to the pre-market. If you're trading the Australian Stock Exchange, you just basically buy when the market opens, and you don't really get a pre-market. But it's quite interesting having this filter here to be able to see which stocks are running really hard in the pre-market, and then that'll give you an idea which ones are going to go up or not. But I'll just remove that again for now. So anyway, starting back at the top, so parts. I like to look at parts. You can see that it's had a good run. Earnings is green, so it's obviously had reasonably good earnings. The RSI is starting to go back up, which I like the look of. You can see the volume is higher than its normal 14-day average. I just have a 14-day volume because my RSI is 14. You just change that here. See how it's got a moving average length of 14. So that's just saying the 14-day average is the red line. And if it's above that red line, it means that there's probably more people interested in that particular stock. So it's kind of cool. Like I definitely like to see earnings. So then we'll have a look at this next one. Again, you can see it's had earnings. For this particular case, it's gone down, but you can see that it's compressed there and it's gone up. It's sort of compressed here. You can see how that top Bollinger Band is sort of spreading out, showing that volatility is increasing. That bottom one is spreading out, showing volatility is increasing. So I'd look at that. The RSI is going up. It's still below 80. So there's probably still room in that. So I'd probably go add to watch list rather. And the other thing you can do too, like I'm just adding to the watch list, but I could do something where I could say the current price is $19.63. If it goes up to say $19.80, send me an email or notify me on my phone. If you've got the app on your phone, you can notify me on the app, and so that way you don't kind of have to sit here and watch the market. I could also go to my broker. I use interactive brokers, and I could put what's called a stop order in. And so I could say, if the price gets to $19.80, buy. It'll do what's called a market order. It'll buy at market. So if the stock's up here somewhere, you'll buy up here. But the whole idea is if it crosses above that line, you'll buy it. And if for whatever reason the market doesn't go up and it goes down, then your trade's not in jeopardy because you haven't actually bought the stock because it hasn't been triggered by that $19.80. So again, all I'm trying to say is that there's a reason why the stock's going up. It's had earnings. The market's obviously decided that the earnings weren't bad because the stock hasn't rocketed down. It went up quite significantly to the top of that little candle there, so you can see it went up. People thought about it, it dropped back down, but then the next day it's gone back up. So again, that CVLG I'd probably add. I won't buy them, but I'll keep them on my watch list. And if they are up in the pre-market, or if they're up when the market opens, then I'll look to put in an order. This one, I wouldn't be overly convinced by. The volume hasn't been particularly great. I'd probably pass on that at the moment. Nautilus is, saying it's a strong buy down here. It's a $14 share. You might add it to your watch list, but I like to sort of see these more sort of solid, more decisive sort of candles. That one there kind of means that the buyers and sellers were kind of pretty neutral about which way they thought the stock would go, and it then just basically closed up 1%, didn't do anything. XPEL, I won't go through all these, but I'll just have a look. So a stock like this, it went up 32%, so it's gone up a long way. I would want to see what it does next. I suspect that it'll probably drop back a bit. Like I might say, if it hits around that $25 mark, that could be a good buying opportunity. So I might create an alert around there. But it might rocket up, it might keep going. So it's just a matter of whether you think if a stock's gone up 32% in a day, is it going to continue to keep going up? It must have had some pretty dramatic news around its earnings, or is it like to have a bit of a pullback? Because what I'd hope it would do is it pull back a little bit, and then that's the point that I might try and buy in and get back into it. CNR, again, little fluffy, crappy candle, so I wouldn't be overly interested. PNTG, so again, really nice big solid candle. So you can see after earnings it went down for whatever reason, but then people are sort of had a bit better think. The RSI is sort of rocketing up, so again, that's probably when I'd hope for a little bit of a pullback and then buy again. This next one, so I kind of like that. It's had like a nice sort of a steady move. Again, I'd probably like to wait just to see what's going to happen next. And I think I might be out of time if that countdown is correct, but I hope this helps.